Anyone who knows the opposite sex well will tell you that, at times, men and women seem to be from different planets. The sexes often appear to think very differently from each other. However, until recently, researchers thought that these differences were caused by two things: social pressures, which have encouraged males and females to behave in certain ways, and secondly, hormones, chemical signals which tell different parts of the body, including the brain, what to do. Researchers didn't think the brain itself caused differences. On the contrary, they thought the brain's structure was mostly the same for both sexes. Interestingly, though, new research is casting doubt on these assumptions, there may be a third factor that had not previously been considered seriously. Research is now revealing that male and female brains have many differences in structure. There are also differences in how the various parts of the brain are linked and in the chemicals that transmit messages between neurons. All this suggests that there is not just one kind of human brain, but two. This is giving neuroscientists something of a headache, because most of what we know about the brain comes from studies of male animals and male humans. Generally, neuroscientists avoided using females in their research. This was because the monthly ups and downs of female hormones made it more complicated to interpret the results. Even a small proportion of what has been inferred from these studies does not apply to females. A huge body of research could be wrong. Male-female differences in brain structure are now becoming clear. In the past, the only structure that had long been known to differ slightly in males and females was the hypothalamus, which helps to control basic human instincts such as regulating food intake. But new technology has helped scientists find other differences. For a start, the relative sizes of many of the structures inside female brains are different from those of males. In 2001, Jill Goldstein of Harvard Medical School and colleagues measured and compared 45 brain regions in healthy men and women. They found that parts of the frontal lobe, which houses decision-making and problem-solving functions, were proportionately larger in women, as was the limbic cortex, which controls emotions. Other studies have found that hippocampus, involved in short-term memory and spatial navigation, is proportionally larger in women, perhaps surprisingly given women's reputation as poor map leaders. In men, proportionately larger areas include the parietal cortex, which processes signals from the sensory organs and is involved in spatial perception, and the amygdala, which controls emotions and social behavior. Larry Cahill, a neurobiologist at the University of California, Irvine, has found evidence that, in some circumstances, people of different sexes use the same brain structures differently. In brain imaging experiments, he asked groups of men and women to remember images they had been shown earlier. These images were chosen because they produce a strong emotional reaction. Both men and women consistently used the amygdala to complete the task. However, the men used the right side of the amygdala, while the women used the left side. What's more, each group remembered different aspects of the image. The men remembered the gist of the situation whereas the women concentrated on the details. This suggests men and women process information from emotional events in very different ways. Research also suggests that the brain circuits that suppress pain may be different in males and females. In fact, a lot of research, but not all, suggests that females experience more pain than males. Some time ago, doctors noticed that some painkillers have different effects on men and women. For example, nalbuphine works better for women than for men. In fact, it sometimes actually increases pain in men. Others appear to work better on men. So, with increasing understanding of how painkillers work, in the future we may be able to create painkillers that are more effective for women. However, developing drugs is very expensive, so we will probably have to wait for more research to show whether this will be financially worthwhile. Another area where there are gender differences is mental health. For example, women appear to suffer from depression twice as often as men, and their brains typically produce about half as much serotonin, a neurotransmitter linked to depression. Recently, Anna-Lena Nordström from the Karolinska Institute in Stockholm, Sweden found that healthy women have more of the most common type of serotonin receptor than men but fewer serotonin transporters, which are needed to recycle serotonin. It hasn't been shown that variations of the setup make some women more prone to depression, but Nordström points out that transporter differences between men and women are of particular interest because this is where antidepressants like Prozac act, and because there is evidence that women respond better to such drugs than antidepressants that act on neurotransmitters other than serotonin. Males may be less likely to suffer from depression, but this is balanced by other issues. Boys are more likely than girls to be diagnosed with a wide range of problems affecting brain systems, such as autism, Tourette's syndrome, dyslexia, stuttering is, attention deficit disorder, and early-onset schizophrenia. So, a new approach to designing medicines, with one gender in mind, may also benefit males in the future. Again, we have to wait for further research.